guys, Culture the Kid here, and today on In the Studio we're going to talk about film because there's some awesome things going on. First thing I want to focus on is Independence Day 2 because I'm really excited about it, and you should be. First thing we're going to talk about is Will Smith because he's not in it. Now, this is old news, started around summer, but I was actually talking about it the other day with my co-writer, and I thought, hey, we should probably talk about it on the film breakdown. So with Independence Day 2, one of the things we were talking about was why Will Smith wasn't in it. And we kind of were going back and forth about all the different news that had come out. One of the things that had been released was a lot of people were saying that Will Smith wanted his son to be in it, and he would not sign on unless his son would be in it. Now, I had not heard about this. I looked online for it. I saw a couple different articles, but none of them had any ground sourcing. However, when I did start researching, I found some stuff that the directors had come out and said. So I guess that's probably a little bit more foundational than anything else. Now, the director of the project originally had said that Will Smith was too expensive. Yeah, that was actually a quote. The actual quote was, Will Smith cannot come back because he's too expensive, but he'd also be too much of a marquee name. It would be too much. That's not true. Come on. Will Smith in a movie will never be too much. Now, there was a lot of other scrutiny coming out later on where another director had come out, and what he said was, in the very beginning, I wanted to work with him, and he was excited to be in it. But then after a while, he was tired of sequels, and he did another science fiction film, which was his father-son story, so he opted out. Now, obviously, what they're talking about is After Earth, which was an M. Night Shyamalan film. I believe it was a Scientology film. So they're saying he opted out to do that. As far as him not wanting to do sequels, I don't buy it. How many Men in Black movies has he done? 3, right? How many Bad Boys? 2? And there's supposed to be a third and a fourth one coming out, which I'm not going to hate on too much because that's awesome and I'm really excited about that. I hope they actually do it. Will Smith, Martin Lawrence, come on. However, if it's going to make money and it's going to have success, track record says Will Smith's going to do it. So I don't know. I don't know whether to believe whether or not he was too expensive or whether or not he was tied up in another project. So I guess kind of weigh your battles. So yes, Will Smith, he's not in it. As far as his character, apparently they're killing him off, and his son is going to be one of the main characters, or his stepson from the original film, who's going to be played by Jesse Usher. Now, if you go back to what I was talking about with my co-writer the other day, which is his son being in it, Jesse Usher is a choice. I mean, because it's like I was talking about yesterday. The world has decided they don't want his son to be an actor. Jaden Smith is just not getting accepted. So you got to deal with that and understand that, like, you're a great actor and you can keep doing stuff, Will, but, like, your son can't be in it with you all the time. So, however, Jeff Goldblum's back. Bill Pullman's back. It's got an awesome, premise to it, which is 20 years has actually passed. And instead of being before where we didn't have the technology and we were going to get wiped out, this time it's going to be an all-out war, which I'm really kind of stoked about because obviously we have the technology. We've been using it for 20 years. We understand it. We're making our own technology with it. And now the aliens come back. Did they plan on us, being more advanced than we were last time? I don't know. But I watched the trailer and it blew my mind. And I was like, dude, this is awesome. This is where we need to go. So yeah, Independence Day. It's going to be released this summer. I believe the release date, yes, June 24th. So this summer, Independence Day 2. Gonna be awesome. Other awesome film news, and in my personal opinion, the biggest film news recently, is that Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark by Alvin Schwartz is coming to the big screen. And Guillermo del Toro is the one who's doing it. Now, obviously, anything that he does is going to be awesome. He puts a lot of heart into his stuff. Maybe some of his things weren't the best. I wasn't the biggest fan of Crimson Peak. However, I think he showed with Pan's Labyrinth, he can be dark, he can be, scary, he can be innovative in that way. But I think another thing is, a lot of people just assume he's going to be the director. He's not yet. They haven't announced a director. He's signed on as a producer right now. And as far as the script is concerned, I believe they're bringing John August. Bam. So you might know him. He did Dark Shadows, Big Fish, Charlie's Angels, Corpse's Bride. So he's going to come on to do the film. I think the biggest thing about it is, one, is this going to be done for the kids that grew up on it? Us? Like, is it going to be geared toward people who are in their late 20s, early to mid 30s? Because the books are from the 80s. So they were around before I was even a kid. So is it going to be made for those, or are they going to make this movie to cater toward children? That is going to be a huge factor in like what we're going to see on the screen. So how are we going to take it? I mean, obviously, I believe it's probably going to be a PG-13 rating, but I think anybody who grew up in the 80s and 90s, we all know kids had it a lot easier back then as far as like protection. And I don't mean that as in like we were overprotected. I mean, we were allowed to be real. We were allowed to see scary stuff. We were allowed to have, I mean, all the cartoons from the 80s and 90s, there's risque jokes in them. I'm sure everybody already knows about all the Disney stuff. So, you know, it's not like some new coming of age thing, you know, where it's like, oh, you know, cartoons have always been this way. This is something that just happened. And it's been within the last, like, I'd say 10 to 15 years that they really got PC with it. More importantly than the fact that it's even being made is what stories are they going to tell? Now, I imagine they're probably going to do a 3-step process, and that way they'll do all 3 books, because there were 3 books. They were all pretty awesome. The first one was one of my favorites. I'm going to start off by just Harold. I don't know if anybody remembers it, but Harold was the story about a scarecrow these 2 brothers make, and he comes to life. They take their aggressions out on him. It's not your typical scarecrow story. It's pretty creepy. I mean, I don't know if you've read it or not, but bad things happen, especially when the brothers split up and one of them goes back to the house. It's not good. And Harold is creepy looking. I'm going to find a picture of him and put it up here for you so you can kind of see it. Harold's a creepy looking dude. He's a creepy little guy. So I really hope that one's in there. I guess some of the other ones that I really enjoyed, there was one called Footsteps, which was a kid's home from school and they're doing their homework and they hear footsteps around upstairs and they go upstairs to check it and there's no one there. And so they come back down, they hear the footsteps again, and the footsteps come down the stairs, and they hear the door open and shut. And when they go and they look outside, it's been snowing, and there's footsteps in the snow. Things like that. Now, I mean, I don't know, you know, exactly what all they're going to do with it, but those are 2 stories I really hope that they put in there. So, I don't know. What do you think? What do you guys want to see? What kind of stories are you hoping they do? What were your favorites? I mean, I know I'm not the only person that read that book and absolutely loved it. So, what were your favorite stories? What do you want to see? You know, and speaking of scary story books from when we were kids, I was born and raised in West Virginia. So 2 of my all-time favorites are Coffin Hollow and The Telltale Lilac Bush. If you haven't checked those books out, if you're not from that state, it's not in your culture to actually read them, but you should read those books. They have some great ghost stories. I think they're all native to West Virginia, even though I'm pretty sure a lot of them are adapted from over time. They've probably been carried from location, but still, like I said, Coffin Hollow, Telltale Lilac Bush, 2 great books. That could also probably be movies one day if I have my way about it. Everything these days is adaptations and sequels. Pretty much everything. Hell, I just talked about Independence Day 2, and I talked about Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which are both titles that already existed that Hollywood is just using to make movies because it has a following. Things that they think are going to be guaranteed successes. However, I like to focus on some under-the-radar stuff. And one of my favorite ones that's coming out is the new Coen Brothers film, Hail Caesar. Now that comes out, I believe, next month. I'm really excited for it. If you don't know about it yet, get with it. I'll put a link to the trailer somewhere around here so that you can check it out. It's typical Coen Brothers fashion. All-star cast, great story. It's 1950s Hollywood. A big-name actor, George Clooney, gets kidnapped and held for ransom for $100,000, and they gotta get him back. I don't really know a lot more than that. But I'm pretty excited. Anything the Coen Brothers do is gold, like 100%. They always have been. They're artists, they're true storytellers, they're heroes of mine, and as a screenwriter, I look up to them a whole lot. So I'm really excited about that film. It has a great cast. I mean, we've got George Clooney, Josh Brolin, Tilda Swinton, Jonah Hill, Scarlett Johansson, Dolph Lundgren's in it. I don't know if he's a big part, but Dolph Lundgren's in it, which is really, really awesome. So definitely want to keep your eyes and ears open for anything with that comes out next month. Got to check out the Coen's Brother film, so that's awesome. Also under the radar, The Witch. I didn't hear about this movie until recently. I saw the trailer for it. The buildup was, it's the most scariest thing you're ever going to see. But then I watched the trailer and I was like, not really extremely scary. However, the only thing I like more than horror are time period horror pieces. So like, that's one of my favorite things. Like, I don't know why. If it's done well, I'm not talking like zombies in the Wild West kind of thing. Like, done well, time period pieces. And that's what The Witch is. It takes place, I believe, in like 1690. and it's just about black magic and the havoc that it wreaks on the family. If you haven't seen the trailer, I don't want to spoil it, but I'm going to. I guess the craziest thing that happens is she has a baby in front of her, and she's playing peekaboo, and then she covers her eyes, and when she moves it up, the baby's gone, and she looks off into the woods, implying that obviously the baby was taken into the woods. It's got a lot of gray hue to it, a lot of dark overtones and stuff, so I think that's really awesome because, I mean, it has a dark feel. So that comes out in February. I'm really excited about that one. So yeah, as far as Under the Radar movies, Coen Brothers, The Witch, got to check both of those guys out. That's it for today. We're going to be back next time talking a little bit more about this reboot nation that we've got going on here. I want to talk about sequels, and I want to talk about the spec script in Hollywood. I am a screenwriter, and as a screenwriter, that's something that's very, very important to me. So I got to make sure that you guys know about it. I got to make sure that we talk about it because it's very, very relevant. We've got to stop this reboot thing. The spec script has to come back. So we're going to do an episode about that coming up. We're also going to talk about the Oscar controversies. So stay tuned, subscribe, keep watching, and thanks so much for tuning in. Till next time, guys, have a good one.